Hello, YouTube. This is Mahadeva, aka Michael William Denny, aka the Thunder Wizard. Uh, if you like these videos, you can subscribe and hit the bell button. And of course, we do have the Patreon subscription, thunderwizard.com. And then if you want to see everything that I have, you can go to courses.thunderwizard.com. All right. Now, this is a new series that I'm starting, and it's called Why People Believe In. And today we're going to start with the big question: why do people believe in God? Now, if you are a religious person, a person of faith, and you have stumbled upon this because the title has brought you in, I want to make sure you understand where I'm going with this. This is not a video about how to bolster your faith in your belief in God, nor am I here to make arguments against the existence of God. I'm going to work very hard to stay in the middle of that and not make any conclusions. I may not do that perfectly because sometimes that's just the way that I am. But I want you to understand that the point of this series isn't to examine the truthfulness of whether or not these things, God, aliens, the devil, Bigfoot, flat earth, why these things, we're not going to examine whether or not these things do or do not exist. What we're going to do is we're going to examine why we believe in them. Why is that important? It's important because our beliefs absolutely rule our lives. Everything you have in your life is based on a belief that you have, whether you're conscious of it or unconscious of it. And I'm going to try to remember, hopefully, I'm going to make the argument here in this that for many people, even for many people who claim not to believe in God, their entire life is based on that belief. And everything they do and all of the choices that they make are based on that belief. So, am I going to do this? I'm going to start with something a little, this will make the people of faith happy, so keep them watching. So we'll start with this. Atheists and most agnostics believe in God. In fact, I'm going to say they believe in God more than anybody, which is why they're atheists. You're saying to me, what the heck are you talking about? You can talk to somebody who is from a completely different culture, whose traditional religious culture is totally different from monotheism, from Western Abrahamic religion. A Hindu is a good example. Find some tribal person who's had little contact with the modern world, a nature worshiper. These people don't have a strong attachment in what does or what doesn't exist. And so when you tell them God does exist, they'll go, okay. And if somebody else comes along and says, no, God doesn't exist, they'll go, okay. They don't have a strong emotional attachment about it. They believe in this, they believe in that, but they have a more holographic view of things. The only way that you end up with staunch atheists is in a society that is very deeply monotheist. Because here's what an atheist does. Here's the thought process an atheist goes through. An atheist is brought up in a culture where there is a strong religious influence, like the United States or Europe, for example. Now, they could not be, perhaps they're not born, but oftentimes they are. They might not be born in a staunch religious Christian monotheist home, but they see it everywhere they go. And so they're very indoctrinated, deeply indoctrinated in the belief in God and sin and heaven and hell. For whatever reason, they come to the conclusion that this God character is really a tyrant and he is bringing damage to me, and the whole idea of believing in this guy is so damaging because look at the crusades, look at the witch trials, look at these religious people and how, you know, just how mean they are and how they're constantly, you know, telling you you can't be this and you can't be that, and they try and control you, and it's very destructive. And so they decide that Jehovah is bad news. And so they become an atheist. Now, what they don't realize is that in their mind, on an unconscious level, they believe so strongly in Jehovah that they only have two choices. They either believe in him or they refuse to believe in him. Because that is the way Jehovah has set it up in the Abrahamic scriptures. He makes it very clear. He says, there is only one God, and it's me. And he says, you know, you shall have no other gods before me. And he says, especially in the Old Testament, he says things like, if you follow all of my commandments, you love me. If you do not follow all of my commandments, you hate me. And if you hate me, and then he lists all of the ways he's going to curse you and curse your family for 7 generations. Now, whether somebody knows this or not, that is the driving force behind the belief in Jehovah. There either is a God or there isn't. And those who believe in God will say the exact same thing. They will say, there either is a God or there isn't. So you have to choose. What are you going to do? Are you going to believe in God or are you going to reject him? This dualist thinking is ingrained into our culture, whether you're religious or not. So this is why you only see atheists in countries and societies that have a past. Maybe we can say, oh, we're a secular society and, you know, separation of church and state. But the truth is that even when you go to school, there's still this black and white dualist thinking. And this comes from believe in God or don't. Pick one. You go to the guy who's a tribal person in the middle of the whatever forest and you tell him, you have to believe in this God or you make a choice. He's going to no, I don't. I mean, I can worship the waterfall over there, or I can worship the stars, or I can worship I don't have to worship one thing. I mean, you want to worship that thing, I'd love to hear about it, and if I like it, I'll worship it, and I'll put it in with the rest of them, and if not, you know, that's your deal. You know, that's your thing. You know, the supposedly Native American, axiom of, you have to walk a mile in another man's moccasins. In other words, that's their path. That's who they are. That's not who I am. But that's okay that that's who you are. The dualist, monotheist says, no, this is the path, the only path, and this is the right one. And if you don't do it, we are going to exclude you. We are going to imprison you. We are going to educate you. We are going to, invade your country and force democracy on you. This comes from the dualist, monotheist, Abrahamic tradition. So that now we have to talk about, again, I'm not talking about whether God does or does not exist. Okay. So now, why do people believe in God? If God is this extremely powerful person, now here's another thing that Christians say. Christians will say, the ways of man are not the ways of God. And God's wisdom is is confusion to man. I forget the exact word, something like that. Basically that, you can't figure God out. And yet to you it may sound wrong or evil, but it's written in the Bible. God wrote the Bible. He knows what's going on. You can't question it. But the problem is that you can't use those same standards on a human. For instance, Jehovah, according to the Christians, Jehovah, God the Father, because of the sin of human beings, his intolerance for imperfection, made it intolerable for him to look at human beings without wanting to destroy them. And so, out of his great love for his own creation, that is now in this imperfection called sin, he commands his perfect Son, which is actually part of himself, he commands his perfect Son, who has no sin, to go and incarnate, become a human being, and then become the willing sacrifice for these human beings, the creation of God, that are now off of the path. They are no longer connected to God. And so Jesus goes and allows himself to be crucified. And in that act of crucifixion, God the Father pours all of his wrath that he has towards his creation, human beings, and he pours it onto his Son. Perfect Son, sinless Son, he pours it on him. The blood that is shed, just like a sacrifice, he uses that to literally cover over, he pours it on top of human beings, so that when he looks at human beings, he only sees the blood of his perfect Son, so that he will not be filled with wrath to destroy his own creation. I'm trying to explain that in the most logical, truthful, faithful way to the text I possibly can. And it's very hard to hear that without thinking, wow, this Jehovah guy is a psychopath. Now, the religious people are flipping out right now, and they're saying, how can you say that? That's not true. He loved us. We are sinful. He gave his Son. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever should believe in him would not perish but have eternal life. Now, here's the problem. Take that same standard and apply it to a human. Imagine a human man who has 5 children, and 4 of them are disobedient. They don't go to school on time. They lie. They don't do their homework. They steal. They, drink and smoke, whatever it is. But he's got one son that is perfect, who's never, ever disobeyed him. Now imagine him doing the same thing. Imagine him slaughtering that son, taking the blood and pouring it over the bad kids, and then telling the bad kids, I just killed your brother and poured his blood all over you so that I wouldn't destroy you. So you better remember that. And you better remember how much I love you, because I killed my favorite son in order to keep you guys alive. So you better bow down and worship me. And if you choose not to accept his sacrifice, I'm going to destroy you anyway. So there, pick one. Now, you would say that person is a murderous psychopath and we need to lock him up. He's absolutely horrific. I have done nothing. I've taken the exact same story about God and his Son Jesus' sacrifice for sin, and I've simply applied those standards to humans. So the question is, why do we believe in that guy? I'm going to tell you why. So if you know anything about psychopaths, the narcissists have no identity. They have no sense of self. They act like they're full of themselves and that they're overly confident, but actually that's not the case. Any psychiatrist, psychologist will tell you no. A psychopath has no empathy for anybody, and a narcissist, their self-esteem is so non-existent that they can't tolerate any kind of any criticism at all. In fact, you must love everything that they do, otherwise they will lose it. They will explode, and and so the reason why people believe in Jehovah is because Jehovah is a narcissist. Again, I'm not telling you whether he exists or he doesn't. I'm saying that he is a narcissist by his own admission. He says, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me." And if you do have any other gods before you, you're in big trouble. In fact, you're going to be slotted for destruction. Jehovah destroyed the world at least one time, according to the Old Testament. He sent this flood to kill all of his created beings, except for Noah and his family, and of course, all of the animals. And to show his love and his grace, he gave us the rainbow, so that every time we look at the rainbow, we will remember God's grace. But God's grace is just that I killed everybody once. Just be grateful I'm not doing it again. Does this sound, if this was a human being, imagine the same guy, he's a father, he's got 10 kids, he kills all of them but 2, and then he goes to the 2 and he hands them some kind of, rainbow little, button, and says, "Here's a rainbow button. Whenever you're bad or whenever you think about doing something I don't like, I want you to look at that and I want you to remember my grace. I didn't kill you. I killed them. I might do it again. So look at the rainbow, be grateful of my love for you, and don't screw up again." If a human did that, we'd lock them up. We might even kill them. God does it, and it's okay. So what we're doing is we are worshiping narcissistic ego. Because if you take the word God out of it and you take the same story and apply it to a human, the human will be a narcissistic psychopath. So whenever we go, this is why religious people are so destructive. Sorry to say, they are so destructive. That's why they don't like gay people, they don't like people of other religions, they don't like people of other politics, they don't like, and then the really extreme ones don't like people of other races. It's because this is a religion of narcissism. And when you bow down and worship this God, the burning bush, take your shoes off, for this is holy ground. Well, but the only thing that's on the bottom of my shoes is ground, because I just walked 10 miles up the mountain and there's ground in front of me. So why is that ground unholy and this is holy? Because I am sitting here. Narcissism. So the reason why it's popular, now you ask, why do so many people believe in this guy if everything you're saying is true? Well, there's this thing called unconsciousness, meaning you're not consciously aware of it. And there's this thing called unconscious projection, psychological projection. And so what we're doing is we are projecting ourselves onto Jehovah and or Jesus. Because what does Jesus really do? Now you're talking to somebody that I was a born-again Christian. I was a minister for years. So we'll get into the other people who aren't religious and the other people who want to talk about Gnosticism. And I'm going to talk about you guys in a second. So hang on. I forgot what I was saying. When you worship Jehovah, it's obviously you're worshiping your own narcissism. Because look at him, he can get away with whatever. All he has to do is he has to command you. Listen, I'm righteous. I know what's going on. I am the truth. I am the light. Do what I say or I will destroy you. That's a great way to live. If what you want is to live in a world where you get to have everything you want your way, that is a great way to do it. You just simply say, Do things my way or I will destroy you. It is the idea that he is righteous, that he is good, that he is truthful, and other people are evil. That gives you the right to look upon others as being evil. Now you're connected to this guy who's got it all together and has, who knows everything, and you're in his team. So you can look at everybody else and they're wrong and you're unrighteous. And if you could just accept God, narcissism, it's your narcissism that you're worshiping. But then you have Jesus. Jesus is the psychological projection of passive aggressiveness. Jesus is very passive aggressive. He's on the cross. He was unjustly put there by the people he supposedly is here to save. His own people. He is the king of the Jews, and the Jews have colluded with the Romans. And in fact, according to the New Testament, it was the Jews' idea, not the Romans, to put him up there. And here he is being nailed to this cross by the people he's supposed to be taking care of. And he says, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." You guys don't know what you're doing. That is condescending. That's not loving. A loving person says, hang on a second. Do you realize what you guys are doing? Think about this for a second. I'm this, you're that, you're doing this to me. Why are you doing that? That's the true teacher, not they don't know what they're doing. You guys don't know what you're doing. And then you've got the guilt. As a Christian, I heard this all the time. And I remember watching, it was one of the most horrific experiences of my life. I was watching, this was when I lived back in Idaho, which is very born-again Christian. And I can't remember where I saw it, but it was a commercial. It was a commercial for a game that supposedly taught little children how to believe in Jesus. And I can't remember if it was a card game or something like that. But they had on this commercial this little girl who couldn't have been more than 4 or 5 years old. And they were acting as though they're playing the game. And the whole idea is like, watch, we can teach her about Jesus' love. Watch this. And they're playing this card game or something, and look at that. There's something, I don't even remember what it was. The evil person is now praying, and why is that? And the little kid is like, because Jesus? Yes, because Jesus. Very good. And this kid doesn't know what the hell's going on. This kid is only trying to figure out, what am I supposed to say here? And there's another thing, and blah, blah, blah. And why do you think that is? Jesus died for me? Yes, Jesus died for you. And that's supposed to be educational. And so the guilt of believing in Jesus, whenever somebody says, Jesus died for you. Jesus died for your sins. He gave everything for you. The least you can do is trust him. Believe in him. And I can't, I was a Christian for many years, and now I go back and I listen to them, and you'll hear Christians, when they start to talk about themselves in a positive way, they say, but listen, it's not me, it's Jesus. Jesus does everything. Somebody who's, busted their ass and climbed Mount Everest and lost 2 toes, and yeah, but Jesus did it. I didn't do it. Jesus did it through me. Jesus gets all the glory. I'm not going to take the glory. That's vanity, and I'm not going to do that because there's only one God. So there's this guilt and there's this shame. And this is all associated with narcissism. So you're either projecting your narcissism onto Jehovah and associating and identifying with him as he's ruling the world and sending thunderbolts to destroy those who aren't perfect, which then begs the question, well, if you're perfect and you created them, how did that happen again? But then if you're not on that, then there's the other path of love. There's the path of righteousness, which is God the Father, and then there's the path of love and forgiveness, which is Jesus. But the forgiveness isn't real forgiveness because it's just passive aggressive. They don't know what they're doing. I'll die for you. You don't have to be punished. I'll die for you. But even that doesn't work because if you don't choose to believe it, then it doesn't take hold. So he didn't really die for you, did he? So this is why people believe in God. Why people believe in God is because they want to worship their own narcissism. Now let me get to the agnostics. I mean, not the agnostics. Let me get to the people who aren't born again. Those of you listening to me going, yes, I know, but you don't understand. The original gospel has been taken over and it's been subterfuged and it's been warped. The real religion was love and acceptance. And so they still want to talk about Jesus. They want to talk about the Gnostic Jesus, whatever that means. They want to talk about, the real God, the one that loves everybody and doesn't judge anybody, the one who created the whole world but did it out of love, and he loves us and forgives us. My belief is that, and I'll give you another example. I had a friend of mine who, he and I, he became religious after I did. I was born again Christian. I went to Bible college and I got a degree, and I didn't quite. I was going to get a degree and I was going to go become a minister. I was going to be a pastor or an evangelist and all that. And then, of course, I had obviously a change of faith and I walked away from that, which was the most frightening thing I ever did. I didn't walk away from it because I didn't believe in it. I walked away from it because I couldn't look myself in the face anymore because I couldn't worship that God anymore. And I thought absolutely I was going to get thrown into hell for that. Of course, over time, I came to realize, well, maybe that isn't the God for me. I told you I wasn't going to say whether God existed or not, but anyway, there you go. So he and I became friends. Then he became a born-again Christian. And then I broke off all contact with him. I said, man, I can't have anything to do with you. I just can't have that in my life. And then a good 20 years went by. And I saw him again. And he had gotten out of it. He had gotten out of Christianity. And we started talking about it. And he was trying to... sorry, I just want to do this. Just quick text. Sorry about that. Don't click off or God will punish you. And he was no longer a born-again Christian. And we talked about it. And he talked about how, the same kinds of things I'm saying to you, he's coming to these awarenesses. And we're sitting there talking about it, and his girlfriend is there. And she was not like a very religious born-again Christian, but she identified as a Christian. If you were to ask her, even though she didn't go to church and she had, premarital sex and drank and cussed and did all kinds of things you're not supposed to do if you're a real serious religious person. And she didn't read the Bible. She didn't really know what the Bible said. She just saw herself as a Christian. And so she's listening to us and she's squinting her eyes at what we're saying, like, what kind of religion are you talking about? And then he stops and he says, she probably doesn't understand why we're so intensely against it because she wasn't as into it as deeply as you and I were. And she said, yeah, that's right. And I don't know why you guys are coming down on it. I think some people, they just want something that represents grace. And, this is a great religion to bring grace. And I said, I completely understand what you're talking about. And I said, but Why do I need grace? The only reason I would need grace is if there was something wrong with me. But there's nothing wrong with being born human. So why do I need that grace? And then she sort of looked and blinked her eyes and didn't really know what to say. So this whole idea of God's love, even if you're not a Christian, but you want to believe in God, but not the religious God, not the God of the Bible. I don't want to believe in that. I just want to believe in a loving God. Or if you can't stomach the term God, then you use the word source or spirit. Spirit spoke to me. You'll hear this with a lot of New Age kind of talk. Spirit spoke to me, or getting connected to source. It's another word for God, but you can't let go of God altogether. Now, the other one is a lot of people want to believe in Jesus. Now, the only definitive book we have about Jesus is the Gospels in the New Testament and the other apocryphal Gospels. That's all that we can go off of. And if you want to believe that this guy existed, you have to use something to base your beliefs on. If you're choosing not to use, or if you're picking and choosing from those books what you want and what you don't want, the truth is that you're creating your own Jesus. I'm nothing against that. I'm just being honest. That's the fact of the matter. You're creating your own Jesus. And you can say, well, I don't think Jesus did that. In fact, I remember reading a book, and I really liked it. This was a long time ago. But it was a book that was called The Gospel According to Jesus. And what it was a book written by religious scholars, people who believed in Jesus and taught divinity and all that kind of stuff. But they were more, they weren't super hardcore. They were more, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, moderate. And so they wrote this book, and they all got together and they got the Gospels out in front of them, and they took the sayings of Jesus and they listed them all. And then there's all this editorial about, well, we believe that the true Jesus didn't say this. This was inserted by the religionists. And then there will be the other one, the kingdom of God is within you. And they'll say, we believe that this is what he did say. It's all conjecture. What they're doing is they're just simply taking their own projection of what they want to be true about the world and projecting it onto the existing corpus of texts of what Jesus said and deciding, yeah, that's what I believe, so that must be what he said. This is the other kind of, the New Age Christian. And the reason why this is important is because instead of just discarding the idea of Jesus, instead of just discarding the idea of Jehovah, instead we sanitize him so that we make him fit within our projection of ourselves. And that's ultimately what this is. We believe in God because he is a projection of our narcissism. We believe in Jesus because he is a projection of our victim mentality, which is also our passive aggressiveness, which is still superiority. Forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. So that's my take on it. That's why I think people believe in God. So I know I'm probably pushed a lot of buttons. Maybe some people have liked it. What's important is to think about why you believe it. All of the things I'm saying, they're not judgments of other people. These are realizations that I came to about myself. Why I believed in God. Why I believed in Jesus. Why when I would go to church and we would be singing hymns to Jesus, why I would be weeping, full of love and so grateful that Jesus saved me from my evil, sinful nature. Because I could project all of my victim mentality onto Jesus. And why when I was a kid, as a 10-year-old kid watching Charlton Heston and the Ten Commandments, why I would burn with a righteous rage towards those evil unbelievers, and then you could apply that same thing to any other religion or group of people that didn't fit your narcissistic projection of your true righteousness. I'm just telling on myself here. And I don't think I'm any different from anybody else. I think I'm just as human as anybody else, and that's definitely what I see when I listen to others. Of course, hindsight is 20/20. That means that's what I believe. That's why I believed it. So that's the first one. I'm going to now get into other ones as well. Why people believe in the flat Earth, why people believe in aliens, why people believe in Bigfoot. I had a Bigfoot experience myself, but I'll still tell you why people believe in Bigfoot. Why people believe in other things. Yeah, I'll get to the other cool, fun stuff too. So that's it for me today. That's my thought. And what I hope you'll do is that you will ask yourself why you believe in whatever. Do you believe in the Matrix? Do you believe in beings of light? Do you believe in angels? Do you believe in demons? Do you believe in the gods? Do you believe in nature? Do you believe in nothing? Why? Ask yourself why. My next one, I'm going to talk about why people are atheists. Okay? We'll look at that one next. All right. Thanks.